What's going on, everyone? Today, this is Sunspell Gaming here, and I'm going to give you my brutally honest take on Windrose. I'm going to give you some pros, some cons, while keeping in mind that this game is in early access, and I'm also going to offer some suggestions that I think would be great to see in future updates of this game. So let's start off with the pros about Windrose. The ship combat. I found the ship combat to be super enjoyable. You're basically just circling around the other ships, attacking them in the process with both cannonballs and bolas. Here's an interesting tip actually. So the back end of the ship itself is your weak spot, so if you want to inflict maximum damage to your enemy, aim for the ship's booty, so you can collect the ship's booty quicker. Okay, so once that time actually comes, you do have two options. You can essentially parallel park your ship next to an enemy's ship once it's reached a threshold of about 30% health or so. Once you've linked those ships, you can actually fire a few shots from your own ship using your pistol, or you can actually board their ship along with your crewmates and slash away at your enemies. Once you've defeated the captain of the ship, you will then have access to your booty. You can hack away at the surrendered enemies, which is actually quite funny and quite sinister if you're into being a bad boy like me. Or you can sink an entire ship and allow them the privilege of entering Davy Jones' locker free of charge. The next pro here is the shared universal stash. I absolutely love this part in the game. Games that have a large loot system aren't necessarily a bad thing, but when you have to pick through each stash you have, even if it is organized thoroughly, it can be quite cumbersome at times. I will say that the universal stash is definitely a good idea for Windrose. Additionally, you can also have the ability to drop matched items from your inventory on hand into your stash. This makes it a lot easier to unload from a journey so you can get back into more important matters such as crafting. Speaking of that, I'm also a big fan of the crafting in this game. So basically the workbench, along with your weapons and armor stations, craft items instantly. You don't have to wait for those pesky timers to complete. I'm a huge fan of this, and while I don't mind shorter wait times for certain items, this allows me to get back to doing other things at my encampment. I will note though, and definitely think that it's more than fair, but there's a timed system for crafting ingots. You do need some charcoal to craft those ingots, which is also a timed item. Now, I think that these are well balanced between those two. My next pro is procedurally generated map. Now, I like a good set map if it's designed well. However, for Windrose, I feel like the procedurally generated map is absolutely what it needs. I think it's very fitting for this type of game because there's a lot of free ocean between the islands, and I feel like it's easier to just sort of plop those islands all around, a little bit similar to Valheim. And the islands, at least so far in my playthrough, are almost identical, with some small variations in enemies and loot between them. My next pro is the music. Now, the music is glorious. I absolutely love it. From chilling at your encampment to the nighttime where things wind down and different enemies start to appear, your ears are greeted with the ethereal nighttime music that guides you as you explore. During the day, you're met with some very nice soft guitar melodies that feel very atmospheric and very fitting, and of course, sea shanties. But what's this exactly? Now this is going to be a good time to start talking about the cons of this game, with my first one being some audio stuttering. Now this might actually just be my PC, and I'm totally willing to eat my words if so, but there's a lot of audio stuttering in this game on my end. I have updated my drivers, experimented with different settings, and nothing really seems to remedy the situation. I noticed the stuttering was the worst when I was out in the water, like how I mentioned before. When I run through jungles, it also gets pretty bad. As I'd mentioned before, I understand that this is an early access game, and it could definitely be a technical issue on the game's end, or it could be something with mine. Do you have this audio stuttering in the game as well? Let me know in the comment section down below if you do. My next small gripe is no experience points from enemies. So in Windrose, you level up by discovering points of interest on your map and by completing quests. I found out the hard way by grinding dodos and boars for about 40 minutes or so, and I noticed that I wasn't leveling, and I was like, oh, what's going on here? Is this a bad thing? Well, technically no, it's not. With whatever you're farming, loot drops, so you can use that loot that you're getting from the enemies that you've grinded to help level up your gear or your weapons at the base of your station. So in that sense, it is sort of leveling you up, but it's tied to an item in the game rather than a permanent experience boost. It's not something that I'm a huge fan of, as I'm used to leveling up my stats from combat and farming, etc., but that's okay for now, because I feel like once the game is fully out and released, things could have a better functionality, and I might actually enjoy the system that they've implemented. But for right now, I find that I'm avoiding a lot of enemy encounters because they just have nothing to offer for me at the moment. So my next con here is that swimming seems to be a little bit discouraged. So being in an open world with a massive ocean, my first thought was to explore the shores of the beach and maybe swim out in hopes to find some little treasures and little knickknacks here and there, maybe some materials for my boat or something else. But I quickly found that my stamina drains very, very fast when I'm in the water. So that tells me that swimming is sort of heavily discouraged. I guess I was expecting to have a better time swimming, but that's totally okay though. Maybe in another update we might have more swim capabilities. And my next con is going to sort of tie into that. The islands seem rather small with little substance, so traversing each island, with your sea shanties and your inventory feels great, and once you dock out and set out to explore the island you recently discovered, you'll find that there's actually a very underwhelming amount of things to do on the island, and I guess this is because they are quite small after all. I'm hungry for bigger areas to explore, and I feel like these islands are just little one-bite appetizers. This makes me believe that the devs want us spending more time on our boats, and that's totally fine, but my sort of suggestion earlier was to have a couple of things sort of inside of the water parts on the shoreline, just to sort of beef things up a little bit. This next point here really isn't a pro or a con, but it's just sort of a small comment about the combat on foot. I don't think the combat's really good. I don't really think the combat's bad either. It doesn't feel that great to control, but it does function, I suppose. I've also heard some people relate the combat to that of a Souls-like. No, it's not. This game doesn't have a Dark Souls mechanic, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Just because you have a stamina-based combat doesn't make it a Souls-like. Windrose has a functional but janky combat right now. Okay, so here's some things that I would love to see in the completed game. The first thing being just a small amount of experience from killing enemies. It may be subjective, but I would love to have that little bit of experience along with the loot that they're dropping, or some other type of progression aside from the loot. This will incentivize me to engage in more combat and not run away like a little sissy. It would really be cool if each island had just a little bit more, and I feel like adding some extra things to hunt for in the shorelines like I'd mentioned before would be a great first step. Now I'm talking in the water itself, not on the shore, because there are items on the shore and little things to do, but I would like to see some stuff in the water close to the island. And it doesn't have to be much, just a little bit, just to spice things up. My next sort of suggestion is, I seem to get swarmed by enemies pretty easily. Now, I understand that this can be sort of like a get good issue on my end. However, I would much rather my challenge lie in a one-on-one duel and not being dogpiled on by several enemies at once. If there could be some sort of thing where maybe they don't all go at you at once, that would be great, just to give me a little bit of breathing room. So in conclusion, I think that Windrose really does have a great foundation, and it is early access, so it does feel very early access in the game, but I do think that once the game is complete, it could be a massive, massive title in the survival crafter genre. What sort of changes do you want to see in Windrose? Are you enjoying the game so far? Let me know in the comments section down below. If you enjoyed my review, please leave a like and subscribe. I have plenty more videos coming up on the channel very soon, and I'll see you all in the next video.